Hi everyone, I'm Alec. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. I'm really looking forward to answering them. Careful about juggling tasks. Funnily enough, this is the thing I enjoy most about being a working cognitive neuroscientist of language. There is an incredible variety of problems I have to solve, things I have to do in a day, and I really love that. It's what drew me to the field. But at the same time, there can be sort of, I might have to do a statistical analysis, I might have to read about a method I've never used, I might have to work on a paper, do some data collection, develop some stimuli, read some linguistic theory. And though I love that variety, there are lots of demands on my time, and sometimes my prioritization algorithm can break down and I can be a bit like, oh, what do I do next? Everything is urgent. But at the same time, as I said, it's what I really love about the job. And so, yeah, juggling tasks. One of the questions I received was that someone wanted to know a bit more about one of the experiments that I've run. And so the first study of my PhD, and the study that's taking up quite a bit of my time at the moment, concerns Swiss German and was done with electroencephalography, EEG, which allows us to look at electrical activity in the brain in a non-invasive manner from the surface by placing electrodes. And it's really good for looking at when something happens in the brain. Really nice timing precision. And with that EEG, what I'm doing is looking at orderings in the Swiss German verb complex. And what I mean by that is that Swiss German is unique among the world's languages, along with a few others, but Swiss German is one of the very few that allows particular orderings of the verb. For example, and I'll give you a direct English translation of the Swiss German structure. I can say something like, has he, her, the house helped paint? Or has he, her, the house painted helped? Or has he, her helped the house paint? This might be a bit difficult to follow, but what's crucial here and what's really interesting for my work is that I can get all of these different orderings of the words with no change in meaning, which really lets me focus in on looking at structure, how we plan the structure of our sentences, and how that unfolds in time, without a confounding factor, something that might muddy the results, where there's change in meaning alongside change in structure. I think there are a couple of ways to look at this question, but a typically developing person, any typically developing person, is capable of learning any human language, spoken or signed. So we have some ability to just gain the ability of language, provided proper input and experience. As a first language, I would say it's tough to say what one means by easier for the brain. So I'm going to abstract away from that a bit, but I do think that language experience can bear on things like second language learning, for example. If you're learning a language like German and your mother tongue is English, there are certain things about German grammar that you don't find in English, and learning these new categories can be a bit of a challenge. Or if you go to a language which is far away in the language family trees of the world, for example, one wants to learn Japanese and you grew up speaking French. There are certain aspects of Japanese grammar that would be unfamiliar to you, but they also tie into other things like culture and pragmatics. Well, to answer the question directly, no. I don't directly believe that any one language is easier or harder for the brain, so to speak. But language experience plays a significant role in our day-to-day use of language, for example, or learning. It seems like there were a lot of language learners that saw our call for questions. So another question I received was, is it better to learn grammar by ear, just listening to people day to day, or is it better to learn them from tables or from books, so to speak? And though I'm not a second language learning specialist, I am someone who likes learning languages, and so I would say, speaking from personal experience, it's beneficial to find that combination that really works for you. Also, I think challenges you a bit, pushes you a bit beyond your comfort zone so that you're learning a bit beyond your level, right? So on the one hand, I would say it's very important to listen to people. You gain a lot, not only just strict grammar, verb forms, for example, to use the example in the question, but aphasia is a term for a category of illnesses. I don't know if this is the appropriate term, but essentially aphasias, there are multiple kinds of aphasia, but aphasias arise from damage to the brain in most cases, via physical injury or stroke, for example. And there are two broad categories of aphasias, and an aphasia specialist will go in a bit further, but there are two broad categories of aphasia. One is known as Broca's aphasia and results largely from damage to Broca's area and other frontal regions of the brain. And Broca's aphasia is characterized by something known as agrammatism, whereby speakers struggle to sequence words, sequence elements of the sentence in a way that follows the rules of their grammar or follows the rules of grammar observed from a typically developing person. On the other hand, you also have Wernicke's aphasia, whereby there's a lesion or damage to the left auditory processing part of the cortex. And Wernicke's aphasics often demonstrate very fluent sounding speech, but the content of that speech is often unintelligible. As I said, I'm not an aphasia specialist, but this is a sort of broad picture view of what aphasia is.